Everlasting joy. I often hear people talk about the difference between joy and happiness and how joy is everlasting and happiness can come and go. But I say that even though joy can be everlasting, it's not always present in our hearts, nor does it always cause us to start leaping with joy. So what is it? If you've ever read Isaiah 35, you might notice that there are a lot of words in that chapter that don't sound joyful. And yet, the title of that chapter in my Bible is called The Joy of the Redeemed. Here's some words that are in that chapter. Desert, parched land, wilderness, feeble hands, weak knees, fearful hearts. Have you ever had any of those? Of course we have. Blind eyes, deaf ears, lame legs, burning sand, thirsty ground. All desert images. And then at the very end is sorrow and sighing. That doesn't sound like a joyful chapter or a joyful existence, and yet that's the title of the chapter. And obviously, if that's all the words we focus on in that chapter, we will not feel joyful at all. And the same goes with our own lives. If we focus on, recall, talk about, and remember only the dry places, how weak we were, all the fearful events, and being devastated and constantly crying, we will miss all the other parts of the chapter in between all that sorrow. And yet we all do it. We get in a funk, so to speak, because life is hard. Our paths are rocky and steep, and we get thirsty and weak. Have you ever been with a child on a hike when they're thirsty, tired, and weak? They are cranky, not joyful, and not full of laughter. But let's go back through that same chapter with all those doom and gloom words, and let's focus on the joyful ones because there's plenty of them. Rejoicing and shouting at the splendor of God. Literally rejoicing in the streets that we mentioned before. God will come with vengeance to save us. Eyes will open, deaf ears will hear, the lame will leap like deer. That seems impossible, and yet with all of that amazement comes joy. Pools in the burning sand, bubbling pools in the thirsty ground, grass and reeds now growing, and a highway with no ravenous beast around, a path called holiness. Then the chapter ends with this stunning visual of the rescue that's taken place for all of those that were distressed. Everlasting joy will crown their heads, and what does that even look like? Gladness and joy will overtake them. Is that kind of like being tackled? Or is it an embrace, or what? Sorrow and sighing will flee away. Now that sounds awesome. A little further in Isaiah, in chapter 61, it says that we will have the oil of joy instead of mourning, a garment of praise instead of despair, instead of shame and disgrace, and everlasting, there's that word again, joy will be ours. So everlasting joy obviously doesn't mean that things will go well for us every day on our journey. That fact removes any shame that might be whispering in our ears that we must have done something wrong to be suffering like we are. Everlasting joy doesn't mean we won't experience days of sadness and despair or tiredness and fear. That fact reassures us that He understands our weaknesses. In fact, He was acquainted with our sufferings when He lived here on earth. What everlasting joy does mean is that it permeates, it dictates, it overshadows, it overtakes, it sets free, it heals, it turns the impossible to possible, and it shows up in provision of the most miraculous kind when we choose to notice it on our journey. Joy is everlasting because joy is Jesus, and He's with us at all times, seeking to save us from the ravenous beasts that taunt and leer. Joy is a garment He places on us, and it's called praise. That's why worship and praise ushers in and lifts up our spirits, that connection with Him when we speak the truth of His great love. And remember that armor of God list what we wear on our heads, the helmet of salvation? Well, here we're told that everlasting joy crowns our heads. So our salvation is the helmet. It's sure, it cannot be revoked, it's with us, and it crowns our heads in this everlasting joy. Then at the very end of Isaiah 35, it says, He removes sorrow and sighing, and they flee away as if they're running for their lives. This encourages me. I hope it does you as well. One chapter describes the whole of our lives with all the bad stuff, but the same chapter lifts us up with the reminder that He's present and near, working all things together for good, overtaking us with gladness and joy that's everlasting.